going to ask if you guys have ever seen this, so that maybe I got my change the angle of my camera there a little bit. So, I want to see if you guys have ever seen this here before, and you can get kind of what would you say why I had to start a little bit early. Let's There we go. And that's what it looks like. And so for whatever reason, that came up. I'm like, that's panicky. And it doesn't tell me what to do with that. So if you guys have any ideas about that, why it would come up on a live stream, those who have been through this process before, I would appreciate it. But no doubt we are live and prepared. I want to ask if you guys have ever seen this. And we have our mic check, of course. Get my microphone a little bit closer and anyway, got one more minute here, just the preparation time. We're slowly creeping up with subscribers and again, I'm not here to uh uh gain subscribers or to make any hay or money or anything like that off my efforts. I got one purpose in mind, and that's to share the gospel to as many people that will be in attendance and have joy for those who do attend, and try not to get caught up in the into that world of how do you say envy or for others who have large audiences. Excuse me. Charles Fever. Okay, so that way you won't hear the noise behind us. It gets a little cold in here. I'll be fine. So anyway, let's get started. This is Wake Up with Come Follow Me discussion. I put discussion in there because I'm hoping someday that somebody actually want to join me on Zoom and actually participate. It would be a wonderful thing to have somebody to interject their ideas and discuss these serious matters. Really, I mean, again, if you a Hugh Nibley fan, uh, he says if you haven't contemplated throughout your life where you came from, why you're here, and where you're going after this life, you've wasted your whole life away. So when it comes to spiritual matters, these are the only things that really do matter in life. So again, while we're here, let's promote the station and again, if you don't like the content, you don't like me as a personality, then I challenge you to come and join me and bring something different. All right. It's not my fault the content doesn't fit your flavor. If you have an opportunity to join me in the morning at 6 a.m. Pacific, then you can move the content where you want to move it. And I can just join on, pile in on for the ride. I love what I do. This is what the Lord has led me to do. There is no if in history. So, I always say that uh, if the if you truly believe that the Lord is a light unto your path, then any delay on that path is his delay, as we should embrace it. So appreciate those who are attending at this time. I have at least one viewer, if not two. I don't, and for that, I am blessed by that because the person that does join me daily, she a wonderful person at least. if it is a she. Again, if you don't give me a message or a comment on uh, for who's joined me today, then it's kind of hard for me to recognize. But if I'm getting the same person every day, a couple of people have joined me again. If you don't like the content or the way I am producing the content on this, please join me live here on Zoom and let me know that you want to uh, help me with the come follow me process. Uh, it's up to you. And I really appreciate those who motivate me to get up every morning uh, and help me to produce this content, because I know that there's at least one or two people, sometimes a few more, that join me at times. And it says, well, if they're going to join me, if they're going to join me every morning, or I'm going to have people joining me, then it helps me get motivated. And so share and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit the notification bell. Also, leave a comment. Let me know where you're from. Let me know how I can be create a better content that you are willing to come and watch on a regular basis or become a part of. You can find me at Arthur A.J. Hill on Facebook, and I've got several links of different places you can find me, including Latter-day Saint on Fire, Facebook, or excuse me, Instagram, and YouTube channel. Also, Paul and AJ's Ex-Mormon Files. There's not a link for that one. But then you have my Facebook group, which is For the Love of God. So there's several ways to contact me, especially if you want to come on and join me on Zoom. So today, for whatever reason, you get, I'm following, I'm going to share this with you, and I'll show you what I was looking at yesterday as I was preparing for today's Come Follow Me. And so here we are, and this is what I seen. All right. So it goes through here, and it says Voices of the Family. And it seemed like that's the next one. So I was like, well, then I'll get into it. And I was like, okay, well, and then I start to scroll down. I'm like, there's not a lot here. What's going on? It's not the curriculum. And I found this out at 5:30 this morning. I'm glad I was prompted to get up early to do this. But I think for the first few minutes here, we'll go through this and just kind of read this and then really get into the Come Follow Me. But we will, because of that inspiration, I looked up uh, Catherine Smith's uh, testimony, and it's long, a little bit long, but she's the last surviving member of the original family, and she's given uh, many times people came to her and at exhaustion. She uh, was always ready to testify of the events, and this testimony I found is actually the Book of Mormon, which we are actually, that is the content for this week. Is uh, for one, the promise of Elijah, and then also the coming forth of the Book of Mormon. So it actually works for us, and I appreciate my error, so that actually has some other content that I could bring to the table, so we can learn even more about the restoration. Also, this is a deep dive into the restoration. We do this for an hour and a half a day, so we're going to get deep into it. And I have a funny story about yesterday going to my Baptist Bible study. So, and I love these people, and I think they mean well. Even, and the pastor that regularly teaches class, he didn't teach yesterday. There was a new guy that came in. He's been there for a bit, and he's known as a deacon. So he's teaching the class, and throughout his conversation, we were talking about the role of Jesus Christ and his um and his what would you say, the greatest of all things that could happen to anybody in human life. And as he's speaking that only Jesus Christ was resurrected, the JWs worship John Smith, and he didn't get resurrected. And boy, I just sat there and I held my tongue. So, I mean, I could have definitely ashamed him right there, and that's not my position. All right, I'm not. I love these people, and I know that they mean well. But so I went to him after, and we had a good laugh at it, and I explained to him what was going on. With it's not John Smith, it's Joseph Smith, and it's not the JWs, it's the Latter-day Saints, and we do not worship Joseph Smith. And I said, the reason that the name Joseph Smith comes up all the time is because those who are not members of the church always bring up his name when they learn of of what church we belong to. And so we're always talking about Joseph Smith because you guys are bringing him up. If you brought up Jesus Christ, we would absolutely love to talk about Jesus Christ. Now, this year we are studying the history of Joseph Smith, and therefore we are, and remember, he's the conduit of our modern world for many of us who, like me, who really didn't have a Jesus Christ or a Father in heaven, uh, except through the conduit of Joseph Smith. And those who have the Bible as a conduit to Jesus Christ, great. I can use that as my conduit also, but for us in the modern day, that we embrace Joseph Smith as a prophet of God, just like we embrace those of old, like Moses uh, and um, and Peter, James, and John, and Jeremiah and Isaiah. We embrace all these prophets. So again, uh, we need to. So I taught him the fact that what's going on here, and he agreed. And then I went outside and I seen a bunch of my friends out there. I said, and when I mentioned that, they said, "Yeah, we know." We were we were kind of, on that too. And so I explained to them a little bit. And so anyway, it was a good time. I always love, and the perspective is one of the things that they brought up that's brought up in there is that the reason that God uh, gave His only begotten Son for those who believe on Him that they can have immortality, eternal life, and that's true. But I said is that I want to add on to that idea that it's not just because He was angry, but He loved us. He didn't want to see us suffer. That He actually loved us enough that He knew that sin was an infirmity, that it was something that would lay heavy on us. And the other expression I made is just because before Christ that the law was in place didn't mean that the people were just mechanical to the law, that they knew when they were sinning and that this was laying heavy on them. And for me, and I don't, I'd have to have a longer discussion with them, but the sacrifice was an enabling power that the God gave them to surrender themselves to uh, surrender their infirmities to the Lord through that sacrifice. And then, but until Jesus Christ, they did that. The power that he that was given to man for sacrifice was sustained and validated. Those sacrifices that they made was sustained and validated by the sacrifice of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But again, uh, so we learned a lot about the conditions or the reason for Jesus Christ, and we had a great time with it. So anyway, we can get into the "Come Follow Me." Um, so let's go through this real quick here. The voices of the restoration, because these people are important to the restoration, especially Mother Smith and many others. But there's so many people a part of the restoration. It's just not Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith, John Smith. What do you know? Joseph Smith was a conduit for God to work through, but he knew that he had good people around him. And that's important. He knew that he had good people around him that would be able to support him and to continue the work even long after he had died. Right. So Joseph Smith's family, we are each profoundly affected by our family, and Joseph Smith was no different. His parents' religious conviction and practices planted seeds of faith that made the restoration possible. And both Lucy Mack Smith and Joseph Smith Sr. And I think his Joseph Smith Sr.'s dad was also a visionary, if I get that right. But we'll learn more about that later. Um, Faith that made the restoration possible. Joseph's journal records this tribute. Joseph Journal records this tribute. Words and language are inadequate to express the gratitude that I owe to God for having given me so honorable a parentage. The following quotations from his mother, Lucy Mack Smith, his brother William Smith, and Prophet himself, gives us a glimpse into the religious influence that in the Smith home. In about 1802, I was taken sick. Said I to myself, I am not prepared to die, for I do not know the ways of Christ. And it seemed to me as though there was a dark and lonely chasm between myself and Christ that I dare not attempt to cross. I looked to the Lord and begged and pled with the Lord that he would spare my life, that I might bring up my children and comfort the heart of my husband. Thus I lay all night. I covenanted with God that if he would let me live, I would endeavor to get that religion that would enable me to serve him right, whether it was in the Bible or whether wherever it might be found, even if it was to be obtained from heaven by prayer and faith. At last, a voice spoke to me and said, Seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Let your heart be comforted. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. From this time forward, I gained strength continually. I said but little upon the subject of religion, although it occupied my mind entirely. And I thought that I would make all diligence as soon as I was able to seek some pious person who knew the ways of God to instruct me in things of heaven. Uh, wow, you think about those words of Lucy Mack Smith and her uh, obvious uh, uh, pain and suffering that she was willing to covenant with the Lord that I'm dedicating my whole life to you, and my children will follow you in whatever capacity you are that you've laid before us. So again, uh, and she really feels that she is disconnected from Christ, and here Christ, she believes that Christ speaks to her the way that that journalist reads. I think because the journals read or created in 1845 or 1844, that she connects the dots and who's really talking to her. I think that's why she uh, writes about it in that way. Um, my mother, who was this is William Smith, my mother, who was a very pious woman and much interested in the welfare of her children, both here and hereafter, made use of every means which her parental love could suggest to get us engaged in seeking for our souls salvation, or as term the The term then was, and getting religion. She prevailed on us to attend the meetings, and almost the whole family became interested in the matter and seekers after truth. And kind of interesting there, what this is saying, but I wanted to kind of add in just real quick. Lucy Mack Smith says, I probably tells of this story over and over again to her children, letting them know that if if you don't just fake this, make it real. Either you have a real connection with God or you don't. You can't fake this. All right. I think there's some conversation to go maybe in that way. So again, William Smith is talking about his mother and her engagement of trying to get her to get the children to be engaged in this process of finding faith in Jesus Christ too, and having that connection. We always had family prayers, and since I can remember, I will remember Father used to carry his spectacles in his vest pocket, and when us boys saw him feel for his for space for his specs, we knew that was a signal to get ready for prayer. And if we did not notice it, Mother would say, William, or whoever was the negligent one, get ready for prayer. After the prayer, we had a song and we would sing. Joseph Smith Sr. and Lucy. Okay, that's a picture. So anyway, religion was real heavy in the homes back then, and up to uh, for a long time, that's the way it was in the United States, especially. Um, Religion was very fervent around the United States and Western civilizations. But again, after 2000, year 2000, when nothing happened, it seemed like the energy of religion was sucked right out of the world. All right. So, but luckily we have Joseph Smith here to kind of stem the fire still. I think his importance to the world of religion is more than just that we can understand. He he ushers in not only the again his uh, name would be have for good and evil in the world, meaning they'll either hate him or they'll love him. And I think because of the love that we have, the passion that we have for Joe Smith, we're always engaged in that conversation. And through that conversation, we get through to Jesus Christ and the plan of salvation and all these other things. But again, because his name is so controversial in the world of religion, it also keeps others awake that wouldn't be awake unless they had Joseph Smith to contend against. So so the Lord is using his name for both for those who are the the uh, uh, the faithful ones to our Father's kingdom, and He's also using it for those who would contend against it. So everybody's engaged more so than they would if they didn't have a person like that had restored the gospel of Jesus Christ in the world. I now, and this is Joseph Smith, he says, I now say that my father never did a mean act that might be said to was ungenerous in his life. To my knowledge, I loved my father and his memory and the memory of his noble deeds. uh, rest with ponderous weight upon my mind, and many of his kind and parental words to me are written on the tablets of my heart. Sacred to me are the thoughts that which I cherish of the history of his life that have rolled through my mind and has been implanted there. by mine own observation since I was born. My mother also is one of the noblest and the best of all women, right? He really surrenders himself to his parents in a deep and meaningful way and understands their role in his um, attributes. So again, we love we love journals. We love. I was I said this to a friend of mine yesterday at church. I was like, until we really until we really have a connection with those who are connected to God in the most intimate way, where they've seen and talked to God, uh, until we're connected to those in an intimate way, we lose out on our connection to God because they become a conduit of, again, I use that word conduit because it's a great word. They can become a conduit of a deeper, meaningful relationship to our Father in heaven, Jesus Christ, because we have their experiences to live through and also create our own our own relationship through the actions that we take to generate that relationship again. And so let's get started with this Come Follow Me today, and let's really start to hone in on what the week's lesson is about, and really dive in deep to what the church has really uh, uh, I mean, they did a great job with this Come Follow Me. I believe these were changes that made from the first one. And so we're getting some more meat in these things instead of the liquid refreshments. Actually, bone to chew on here. And so it makes these things a lot more meaningful to a lot of us who are really deep diving into the Joseph Smith history this year. So, I want to remind people to share and like this video and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Let me know that you uh, uh, where you're from, or just let me know that how am I doing on this today, and or how you're doing this day. Say, hey, I'm doing great. I'm glad to be able to join you this day and all that kind of stuff. Also, if you want to join me on Zoom, again, I'm going to poke at you a little bit. If you are not enjoying the way I'm delivering this content, then join me live on Zoom. Make it something better. I'm challenging those who want to, uh, that are not here, saying, "Hey, you want something better? Then make it better by your participation, not just idly sitting by. Well, he's boring or whatever. Well, fine. Do something about it. I'm here. I'm open for suggestions. I'm open for people to come and join me to make this a lively discussion, something that will benefit everybody. Because the more that I discuss with others in a room, then the more that we'll learn from each other, and then present that to an audience. So again, I do these every morning. I'm not going to miss. Uh, we'll be doing this for the rest of my life because this is what we should be doing. This is where we should be engaged at when we wake up in the morning. Because when we engage with the Lord first, before we do anything else, then we are yoked with Him in such a way that when we have trials and tribulations in our lives, we can feel His lifting power when we stumble with that yoke on. And He's always there loving us and caring for us every step of the way, even when we feel like we're alone. So again, wake up with Come Follow Me and get the day started with the Lord first, and your day will be so much better for you. All right. So here we go. The Doctrine and Covenants, the hearts of the children shall turn to the fathers. So in the occasion when Moroni comes to Joseph Smith, he tells him of this prophecy in Malachi about Elijah and how he would return the hearts of the fathers back to the sons and the sons' hearts to the father. And if this did not happen, if then it would be a waste of the world. The earth would have no, it would have been, the whole world would be wasted, meaning that the plan that God put forth, unless we had the opportunity to satisfy the law for each human being that lived on this earth, then the law would not have mercy uh, uh, within its um, the bound of the affected area. Anyway, I'm not going to be able to explain that too well, but if you can understand, uh, again, laws are both empowering and disabling, and the power of the plan of salvation is empowering to all men. And within those laws, we have God's promises. And those promises cannot be kept unless everyone can can embrace or can have opportunity to fulfill those promises. Jesus Christ in the waters of baptism, surrender that we fulfill all righteousness. All right. It had been, let's get back to it. And it had been 3 years since God, the Father, and his Son, Jesus Christ, appeared to Joseph Smith in the grove. And Joseph hadn't received any additional revelation since then. He began to wonder whether the Lord was displeased with him, like all of us. He had made mistakes and he felt condemned by them. Yet God still had a work for him to do. And the work Joseph was called to do is connected to what God asked of us. Joseph would bring forth the Book of Mormon. We are invited to share its message. Joseph would receive priesthood keys to turn the hearts of the children to their fathers. Excuse me. Boy, I'm glad I'm over that sickness. We can now receive ordinances for our ancestors in temples. Joseph was told of prophecies that would soon be fulfilled. We are called to help fulfill these prophecies. As we take part in God's work, we can expect to face opposition and even persecution, just as the prophet did. But we can also have faith that the Lord will make us instruments in his hands, just as he did for Joseph. And so again, we're not going to get into the specifics of baptism or until those subjects come up. We're not going to get into the specifics of the temple before they come up. This will be mostly about the journal entry that is uh, from 28 to verse 60, and it'll be based on the events that take place for um, Joseph Smith's uh, interaction with the angel Moroni. Uh, right here it says, see also Saints 120 through 48. That's a little bit of a reading, but we're going to do it through this. Um, but I did, again, with my mistake yesterday of thinking that the voices of the family was the next content that we were going to cover. We covered just what it said there, but it also had me engaging and looking for the journals or something written by the family members about the restoration. And so what I found yesterday was the last member of the family that was still living up till 1900. Her name was Catherine Smith. She she would often be uh, approached by reporters and family or new converts and everybody else that wanted to hear her story. Uh, and she actually, there's a journal or an entry that we have that we're going to um, share here, and we're going to read for a little bit because, again, this is the only place you're going to be able to read these things unless you go online and look for them yourself. And hopefully, as we read it, we can actually uh, talk about the moments that and how she's feeling at the moment as she's delivering this message. And she did join the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ. It's called it Reformed yesterday, I believe. Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But she never wavered from her testimony of the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith's prophetic calling. And neither did they. And it's only in the modern time that they're starting to really kind of stumble a little bit. But our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the one that Brigham ushered into the Utah Valley, we're still strong in principle to all things about the restoration, and we stand as really the only one that has not changed in a significant way uh, our uh, our what would you say, our attachment to the restoration and through the movement of the saints into the Rocky Mountains. Okay. So let's get to Catherine's uh, journal here, or to what she had written, and we'll share that. And just in case, we'll share sound first, and we'll get this. All right. So here we go. Stand before, and I'm going to have to kind of muscle through this a little bit because of the way that it's worded, but it really is from a person's entry as he was uh, as she's speaking from. She actually was invited up to the pulpit to express herself at this time, and this is what she shared. She says, "I stand before you, a remnant of the family that brought forth the sacred record to bear my testimony. I can remember the time that this work commenced, that my brother had the vision that he saw the angel and talked with him. After he had his vision, he lay in bed one night studying what he had seen, and his room became light, and it grew lighter and lighter until an angel descended and stood by the side of his bed. He did not touch the floor, but he stood in the air. He was dressed in white raiment, of whiteness beyond anything Joseph had seen in his life, and had a girdle about his waist. He saw his hands and his wrist, and they were pure white and white. And he talked with him 20, or excuse me, talked with him. He said that he was Moroni, and that he was sent as a messenger to tell him concerning the record that was hidden in the hill Conaran. Now, again, we don't know why she would pronounce it that way, but that's the way the person wrote it down. But we know eventually it's called Cumorah. But anyway, here she is standing, probably an older woman, and reciting this story that she's probably told 1,000 times over. Uh, it says Hill Corcoran, well, it's a Hill Cumorah. We'll just throw that in there, which was a history of the people that once inhabited this continent. If you're a Heartlander, it really fits in that. This continent, meaning, here's Moroni standing right here in the upper, uh, in New York, upper New York or whatever, Palmyra, and he's saying this continent. So for us, this continent would be the North America, and also that it was the pure gospel of Christ, that the gospel that he had been since been adulterated, and this was the pure gospel of Jesus Christ, and would be preached in these last days. He also talked with him and told him concerning the prophecies of Isaiah, and told him that and told him what was coming upon the earth. And he also opened the vision and showed him the hill Cumorah, uh, where the records laid, and talked with him a while, and then ascended. But anyway, so just to let you know that he's got brothers in the room. Uh, he's got. I'm going to look it up. If he's so it's Hiram. There's Hiram, Alvin, Don Carlos, William, and himself. All right, there's five boys there. Anyway, so they're all in the same room, and this angel appears, and Joseph Smith is the only one that's conversing with this angel. Uh, but anyway, quite an event to say the least. Let's get back to it. Um, and while Joseph was still thinking over what had he had seen and what the angel had told him, he descended again and stood by his side and repeated the same things he told him the prophecies of Isaiah being fulfilled and would come true, and that his record must be brought forth to the church established in the last days. For was no true church on the earth, on earth. He ascended again, and then he descended the third time. And then my brother said that the chickens crowed for day, showing that he had conversed with the angel all the blessed night. So he never got any sleep. One person made the comment that he went to sleep or he went to bed like at midnight. So whatever that means, okay. Or he was up till midnight and then maybe went to sleep a little bit, and then all of a sudden about 6 o'clock, cock crows, and he's been with the angel all night. So he might be fatigued a little bit. Let's see. The next morning, when my brother got up, he went to the field to work, but he could not. Uh, he could not. The Spirit of God was upon him, and the angel was with him. Father told him he was not well, and had better go to the house. Joseph started to the house, but fell by the way, and the angel Moroni appeared to him and said, I, uh, I, Joseph, tell your father uh, what you have seen and what you are commanded to do. He said, I'm afraid. My father won't believe me. But the angel told him his father would believe him. So he went to the house and sent for father and my two brothers. And they came to the house and sat and talked quite a spell. I wondered at it. I was young and I didn't know what they were talking about because they were so busy with their harvesting. Father said, and do bid Joseph, just go, just as you are, excuse me, Joseph, go, just as you are. So he went to the hill Cumorah. This, this was, I think, the 22nd day of September, 1827. Again, I'm sorry to stumble there, but I try. It's really hard to read sometimes these journals because the entries are kind of, you know, and I'm a bad reader anyway. I'm surprised I can read so well as I do um, when I'm uh, when I'm actually doing this live. And like I said, I identify with Joseph Smith so much. Probably a bad reader like I am, and whenever had to get up and read in front of the class, very embarrassed by the fact that he couldn't read as well as the other kids and probably didn't want to be there. But anyways, uh, I think it was 20, I think the 22nd day of September, 1827, and found it exactly as he had seen it in the vision. The earth was rounding on top, and he got a stick and pried the dirt away from the edges and got a lever and raised the lid, and there beheld the records that he that were to be translated, and the Urim Thummim, and the sword and the breastplate of Laban, and the brass plates Lehi brought from Jerusalem. Moroni told him the time that had not come yet, had not yet come for them to be brought forth, but that in due time he should bring them forth and translate them. Joseph said, I am not learned. And the angel said, there is the Urim and Thummim, and they will show you how to interpret them. The next year, at the same time, Joseph visited the same place again. And the third year, he went expecting to get the records. So he raised up the lid and took them out. And he thought that somebody might come along and see them, things, see these, and see these things, not thinking that the Lord had watched them for 1400 years and laid the record down and covered the box. When he turned and to take his record, it was gone and gone. The angel told him he must preserve and must not give up. He raised the lid again, and there was the record, just as it laid before. He reached forth his hand to take it, and he felt a pressure pushing um, him away. Him away. He tried the second time and the third time. He fell to the earth with the pressure, and he cried in the bitterness of his soul, Lord, what have I done that I cannot get these records? You have not obeyed. Moroni said, you have not obeyed the commandments as you were commanded. To, excuse me, no, there's no commas and punctuations here, so if I read that wrong, I want to reread it. Thank you for everybody that's watching me at this time or will be watching later on. Appreciate your that. Leave a comment, share, and like, and subscribe to this channel. Share this video, like this video. And anyway, let's continue reading. Said, you have not obeyed the commandments as you were commanded to. You must obey his commandments, and every particular you were not to lay them out to, of your hands until you had them in safekeeping. Joseph said, what shall I do? He said, come here in the next year at this time and bring your oldest brother with you, and you can receive the records. In November, my brother Alvin took sick, and through the ministering of medicine by the doctors, he passed away. Joseph went to the place and inquired of the angel what he should now do. Again, I'm trying to read through this. What should now do? Now the angel said, you must bring some person with you. And Joseph said, who shall I bring? My oldest brother is gone. The angel said, you will know her when you see her. That fall, oh wow. that fall, he went down to Pennsylvania. And the reason he goes down to the Pennsylvania because they had heard that he was able to have a seer stone and look for treasure or whatever. And they believed that, but he was there just to be muscle. He could, probably outdig most people. Uh, and I can't remember the name of the person that hired him on, but he's down in Pennsylvania because he's working. And he became acquainted with his wife, Miss Hale. And he knew when he saw her that she was the one to go with him to get the records. In March, they were married, and he brought her home. And on September 22nd, she went with him to the place. She didn't see the record, but she went with him. He took them up and brought them part way home and hid them in a hollow log. My father, in a few days, heard that they had got a conjurer who they said would come and find the plates. And he came home. Emma was weeping, and he said to her, "You will have to go after Joseph." Joseph was away at work, and they were determined to find them. Them records, she said, if I had a horse, I could go a few days before. A stray horse we had, nothing but oxen, then had come to our place. And father said, I will get you a saddle and bridle, and you can ride that horse. She went to her where Joseph was at work and told him that the records were in danger and that father was anxious to uh, for him to come and take care of them. He came right home and went to the place where the records were and wrapped them up in his frock and started home. He stepped on a log, and a man raised up and struck at him. Joseph knocked him down. He stepped on the second and the third logs, and three different men struck at him, but he made his escape and came home. When he got to the door, he said, Father, I have been followed. Look and see if you can see anyone. He then threw himself on the bed and fainted. And when he came to, he told us the circumstances he had, and his thumb put out of place, and his arm was very lame. We got a chest and locked the records up in the house. From that time on, our house was searched all round, uh, and our field and our wheat stacks were searched. But the mob was around our house nearly every night. And one night they went into Father's cooper shop and tore up his floor and dug the earth. And from that time until we went to Pennsylvania, we had to keep watch for the enemy. And when he went to Pennsylvania, he commenced translating the Book of Mormon uh, and translated some 116 pages that Martin Harris took home and lost. When my brother found they were lost, he was very much troubled and said, I am afraid I have broken the commandments and will not be able to allowed to translate the record. And I think this gives us an insight on, again, his response and Catherine's journal or explanation of this event seems to cover the tracks that he never lost connection between keeping the commandments, which is demonstrated when he refuses to take liquor when he's having surgery. And this moment here where he's feeling like that his immortal soul is, it's done, it's over. I'm going to hell kind of feeling, because these pages are have been lost. So he's very aware that the Lord is displeased with his actions, and he feels it. And this is the journal entry we're reading, Catherine's journal entry, or not journal entry. She's actually delivering a message before the congregation. Um, and this is what she's telling the audience about the coming forth of the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith, and how her relationship with him and how those events take place. And of course, she doesn't know all the events, but these are what a lot of this is what Joseph is telling her and the family. I'm afraid I have broken continue reading. I'm afraid I have broken the commandments and will not be allowed to translate the record. The angel came and took the Urim and Thummim, and this really gives us a really good insight on what's going on with Joseph Smith during this process. And in reading her words really unfolds a new avenue of thought, of some more insights on the situation, that from her position, um, and how she was, uh, what we say, interpreting what Joseph Smith was telling the rest of the family, or how uh, the events surrounding the Book of Mormon, the plates, and how they're being sought after by those by the mobs. And she's articulating this, and so it really helps us. It again, it's another validation for the work that's proceeding from Joseph Smith. And we need to appreciate these journals when we see them, that somebody else is witnessing to the events. And I think that's important. It's very important to me. Several days, and the angel returned them again and told him that his sins were forgiven, and for him to go ahead and translate, but not to translate that lost that will that was lost, but to begin where he had left off. He commenced, and when he had got the record partly translated, persecution arose there, and he wrote for David Whitmer to come and take him to his house. Excuse me, to his house. David came, and he asked how he should carry the plates. He was told that they would be there when he got there in the garden. When he got to Father Whitmer's, he found the records as he had been told. He would now I'm trying to read this, and there he finished translating the Book of Mormon. So this this record here says that they didn't even take the plates with them; that they were delivered by the angel. Uh, at least this is the way I'm in the garden. It's live, so that gives me problems. Excuse me. I got a text here from somebody. I don't know what that means. Ugh. Anyway, my daughter's, she can't hear me. I hope she can't. But she says, "Hey, Jay." She's yelling at me, it looks like. Hopefully she can't hear me. I did everything so that I could isolate my room from her. I don't know why. She can, 44 minutes ago, we've been on this. Yeah, probably whenever I'm creeping in and out of the room. Anyway, let's continue on here. Um, let's see. to come and take him to his house. David came and he asked how he should carry the plates. And he was told that they would be there when he got there in the garden. When he got to Father Whitmer's, he found the record as he had been he would uh, told he would, and there he finished translating the Book of Mormon. I'm not sure what that means. If anybody has any insight of what's being told here, I really appreciate you leaving a comment or something like that to kind of help us out. And there is where the three witnesses were showed the plates by the angel that turned the leaves over one by one, and the angel told them that when the church became pure and the rest of the record, some of the plates were sealed, would be translated and brought to the church. After that, the eight witnesses saw the book and turned it over leaf by leaf and saw the characters that were on them. From that time on, they commenced printing the Book of Mormon. And soon after the book was printed, there were six that met together and organized the Church of Jesus Christ as it now exists in these last days. The guardian and deliverer them up again into his hands. Anyway, that's the entry, or that's again that story comes from, or that comes from us where Catherine's in front of an audience at that she's been asked um, uh, to deliver a message about the coming forth of the Book of Mormon. And she gets up in front of this audience. I couldn't tell you what year this was. I can't remember, but she's older. She's a part of the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ. And she delivers that message. And you can find her journal. You just look up Catherine's Smith's journal. Or uh, uh, anyway, I can't remember how I found it. I just found it. But you can find anything on Google. I also went and did some research on William and William and Joseph famous fight. Uh, Joseph's probably taking off his jacket, and William knew that Joseph probably taking the best of him, and he got the first shot in, and so it was a ruckus. They were seemed like the story goes that they were always fighting. Uh, Even others were joining in on the fist fights within the brethren. This was, because there was a lot of things going on that were uh, that they weren't getting along. All right. I'm surprised that the church survives with all the heartache that was going on within the Quorum of the 12. You can read about it. Uh, we have. It's only by the grace of God that we even have the gospel today, because especially, if this was a fraud, this thing doesn't survive at all. There's no way these people would have disbanded long before it even got started. As much as contention was between these people, the family would have never endured such suffering as they did. I mean, people coming in and trying to rob you all the time because they think that you got gold in your house and whatever that be, and it's just uh, again, it's an absurd idea to think that people would want to subject themselves to these kinds of assaults by others in order to promote a fictitious story. Again, why? After a while, there's money to be made in the process of exposing frauds. Uh, but yet nobody's willing to step forward uh, and really just associate themselves with anything called a fraud. They had called Joseph, those who left the church had called him a fallen prophet, but they would never they would never say anything different about the Book of Mormon and how it came into its existence. Hiram Page left the church, and Oliver Cowdery and David Whitmer and Martin Harris, they all left or excommunicated from the church. And so but they all stayed true to what they knew. Uh, and again, Samuel Smith, I forgot Samuel Smith, who died soon after the martyrdom of Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith. And there's so much that was involved in the work that they put too much effort forward as a as an individual, as Joseph Smith, and then as a group and as a people. I mean, when you're kicked out of the United States and you have no more attachment to the United States because you've been driven out for good reason, people probably want to kind of uh, separate themselves from something that's causing them so much misery. It never happened. So let's go to the Saints. Let's see. There's so much we just read about. Uh, anyway, let's see what I really. Uh, let's let's start and see where we're going. Um, again, this is where if another person was here, we kind of have a little bit more discussion on the situation. But this entry here from the Saints, the book The Saints, and when it talks about the gold plates, we can actually kind of get attached to the moment that these events were taking place. So let's read it. Let's see how we can uh, come up with some ideas here while we're reading. Let's share. All right, let's read. 3 years passed and three harvests. Joseph spent most days clearing, and one of the things that we get in the reading that we did with Catherine is I thought it was 3 years that he had to wait. Obviously, she says it was 4 years because Joseph uh, wasn't following the commandments because he had laid the once he picked up the gold plates, he put them down on the ground, and then he put them back in the box, and the prophet Moroni says you can't just lay them on the ground. Once you pick them up, you got to keep them in your hands and not put them anywhere except for until you get to a place where they're safe. So again, then he had to go back to fourth year, according to Catherine. 3 years passed and three harvests. Joseph spent most days clearing land, turning soil, and working as a hired hand to raise money for the yearly cash payment of on the family's property. So this must be between the time that uh, the first vision and this time before the angel Moroni. So that's what I'm thinking here. Uh, the work made it impossible for him to attend school very often, and he spent most of his free time with family or other laborers. Get a drink of water here. And Joseph found that, excuse me, Joseph and his friends were young and lighthearted. Okay, if you got friends and you have some ambitions for money, one of those ambitions for money, if you're especially when you're digging and toiling in the soil and stuff like that, you're thinking, wow, the next shovel that I put into the ground, this could be gold. You know what I mean? So that thought's always in there. So children, most children, especially impoverished children, and I was, I can identify with this because I was impoverished. We had a river next to us and a canal, and when we go to the river, there was always this exploration for gold there to find something that would enrich us. You know what I mean? So there was that kind of seriousness to the moment when you have needs, and so there's a seriousness, but also there's kind of this playful approach to it also. But again, given the situation with Joseph Smith, every shovel he's turning, or anytime he goes to a river or something like that to fish or whatever, he's thinking about ways of creating some kind of money for his family. Joseph and his friends were young and lighthearted. Sometimes they made foolish mistakes, and Joseph found that being forgiven once did not mean he would not never be need to repent again, nor did his glorious vision answer every uh, or question or forever end his confusion. So he tried to stay close to God. He read his Bible, trusted in Jesus Christ, Christ's power to save him, and obeyed the Lord's command not to join any church. Like many people in the area, including his father Joseph, believed that God could reveal knowledge through objects like rods and stones, as he had done with Moses, Aaron, and others in the Bible. And I want to mention to you, whenever I go, if I'm having to do some trenching or whatever, especially for electrical, then I take a couple of pieces of wire, I bend them at a 90, and I go out there and I hold them. And whenever I cross over a pipe, they'll actually bring themselves into and cross over where that pipe is. And all you have to do is mark the ground. And sure enough, there's pipe there. So it works that way with wire. I've never taken a divining rod and held it in my hand, which is usually a forked stick. And there's some what is it? Some specific wood that most people at that time would use. Uh, so again, for there's some physical laws that are in play there that allows those things to happen. But again, the we're talking about the stone in the hat here. This is something that's relatively new in a lot of ways that comes forth, because we are always taught in seminary that when I was growing up, even though that I attended seminary, I didn't, I only got a few things out of it. Uh, most of my time was spent thinking about when I can get out of there to go play basketball or video games or pinballs. Anyway, so um, we were taught that Joseph would sit there at the table and his scribe would be on the other side of this curtain. We could probably show it sometime, but we don't need to. We know what we're talking about. And that the plates were sitting there covered, or he was actually looking at the plates and translating that way. But now we hear about the rock in the hat, but we need to know the origin of that rock, and that's why they're going into this. So anyway, like many people in the area, including his father, Joseph believed that God could reveal knowledge through objects like rods and stones. Uh, and the Urim Thummim seems to be something of curious workmanship, even in the Bible. So there's something to that. So you can't say, well, it's never been done by God, because there is something that the God has worked through these things, obviously. So he has done with Moses, Aaron, and others in the Bible. Uh, I mean, whenever Moses needs water, he hits the stone, and water comes forth. One day, while Joseph was helping a neighbor dig a well, he came across a small stone buried deep in the earth. Aware that people sometimes use special stones to search for lost objects or hidden treasure, Joseph wondered um, if he had found such a stone. Looking into it, he saw things invisible to the natural eye. Joseph's gift for using the stone would impress family members who saw it as a sign of divine favor. But even though he had the gift of a seer, Joseph was still unsure if God was pleased with him. He could no longer feel the forgiveness and peace he had felt after his vision of the Father and the Son. Instead, he often felt condemned for his weakness and imperfections. Excuse me, sorry. Oh my, that's what happens in winter time. Uh, try to do something about that cough. Anyway, try to get back to it. On September, and think about this. Those who have those gifts, and I have gifts of my own. Um, when I dream prophetically, and I was told this story before, then I know that when the event takes place in my dream, that there's a tragedy that's going to strike our family, and it does. Some traumatic thing happens, usually death, or even before I got my divorce with my first wife. I had a prophetic dream, and when it happened, that's whenever I left my wife. Traumatic, and to say the least, in life. Excuse me. So, but these are strange things, and people don't embrace those strange things. Boy, this is going to be bad. Just give me a second. I'm going to let go here for a minute. All right. I don't know if that's going to work, but I tried. Um, this is getting bad. Try some more water. Anyway, let's continue. I want to check out some audio here. I mean, when it happened, that's whenever I left my wife. Traumatic, and to say the okay. So the audio's still good. I'll make sure that's going on. Um, so when you have gifts like these, and they're very, what would you say, um, out of the ordinary, you know that people are kind of like um, indifferent about them. They embrace them, or they look at you like you're nuts. All right. And even yourself, when you have these events in your life, you yourself are not confident at all of the situation. That you feel out of place. And if Joseph Smith is already, he's already had this one magical moment in his life with the first vision. I can only imagine that when he has this stone, he's heard about this thing about people using different objects to find water or whatever that looks like. That again, he's like, I seen the Father and the Son, I wonder if I have this special gift given to me because of that special occasion. And things like that would run through your mind. Anyway, it says here that he sees things in the stone that he found that are not seen by the world. And again, I'd be like sitting there like, now what do I do? What do I do with this information? What do I do with this rock? Is this something of evil, or is this something that God has given me, delivered to me, to be a conduit for the benefit of the work that He wants me to do? I would be like what, you know? Sorry, that cough is seems to linger. I appreciate those who have joined me this day, and I'm glad that you've been able to get this far. Um, and I hope that you've been affected by what I've said. If in a let me make sure that nobody else is texting me. Sometimes I have my friend text me. Um, but anyway, so he's probably like, what do I do? Is this rock made for good or evil? Kind of idea. But anyway, on September 21st, 1823, this is 3 years after him, when he's 17 years old, Joseph lay awake in the loft bedroom he shared with his brothers. And he had stayed up late that evening, listening to his family talk about different churches and the doctrines they taught. Now everyone was asleep, and the house was quiet. In the darkness of his room, Joseph began to pray, pleading fervently that God would forgive his sins. Probably thinking about that rock, He longed to commune with a heavenly messenger excuse me, who could assure him of his standing before the Lord and give him the knowledge of the gospel he had been promised in the grove. Joseph knew God had answered his prayers before, and he had full confidence that he would again answer again. And as Joseph prayed, a light appeared beside his bed and grew brighter until it filled the entire loft. Joseph looked up and saw an angel standing in the air. The angel wore a seamless robe that came down to his wrist and ankles. Light radiated from him, and his face shone like lightning. Um, I was just thinking that um, that if you were given this occasion, this is not, you know, uh, again, even if you've had the first occasion as he did, this one's still like, now what? What does this look like? At first, Joseph was afraid, but peace soon filled him. The angel called him by name and introduced himself as Moroni. He said God had forgiven Joseph of his sins and now had work for him to do. He declared that Joseph's name would be spoken of for good and evil among all people. Moroni spoke of the gold plates buried in a nearby hill. On the plates was etched the record of an ancient people who once lived in the Americas. The record told of their origins and gave an account of Jesus Christ visiting them and teaching the fullness of the God of his gospel. Buried with the plates, Moroni said, were two seer stones, which Joseph later called the Urim and Thummim, or interpreters. The Lord had prepared these stones to help Joseph translate the record. The clear stones were fastened together and attached to the breastplate. Okay. So again, if you Joseph finds this stone in the dirt. He's never heard of the Urim and Thummim, I'm sure. It's something that's obscure in the Old Testament, not something that would be something you could attach to in your mind. He finds a stone, and he's probably troubled by the whole situation, that he can look into this stone and see things that are not a part of the real world. But he's, like I said, he's like, what is this? Is this something that is God uh, uh, has for me to use as a way to forward the work, or is this something that is of evil intentions? And he doesn't know. But I think once he learns of the Urim and Thummim, and he actually sees them, he's confident that the stone is made for that purpose, for the for whatever God's purpose was, for him to have that. All right. So that's where I would land on that. For the rest of the visit, Moroni quoted prophecies from the Bible, biblical books of Isaiah, Joel, and Malachi and Acts. Um, the Lord was coming soon. He explained, and the human family would not fulfill the purpose of their creation unless God's ancient covenant was renewed first. Moroni said that God had chosen Joseph to renew the covenant, and that if he chose to be faithful to God's commandments, he would be the one to reveal the record on the plates. Again, there's no if in history. It happened as it happened, and therefore Joseph Smith was a chosen vessel to bring forth the restoration of the gospel. Uh, Before departing, the angel commanded Joseph to take care of the plates and show them to no one, unless otherwise instructed, warning him that he would be destroyed if he disobeyed his counsel. Light then gathered around Moroni as he ascended to heaven. Now it's kind of interesting that this conduit of light comes in, and then this angel appears. And I've always been, for a long time, understanding that that light is the conduit which God travels and His angels travel uh, back and forth to from their place or their dimension to our dimension. So that's how I view that. I think there was a curious story that I have. I I was knew about this new idea uh, about how they were going to build a platform out or use a platform that was used for oil rigs out in the middle of the ocean and tether a strong band from that object on the Earth into space, where they would have a vessel up there that would create that would be for an elevator to move from space back into the Earth. And I learned about this, but then whenever I was this a long time ago, whenever I was focused in on this idea about light and how it became a conduit for angels and God to travel through, I said, and I thought, well, light could be the way that they could propel this objects, through this conduit. If you were to create enough mass of light so that you could actually not burn through it like a laser, but actually force it through space. And then months later, I'm listening to this commercial, and actually NASA was looking for those who would be able to create lasers to propel a rocket or a vessel from this platform on the Earth into space. So yeah, and then I find out now in recent days that laser can travel at 6 or 7 times the speed of light. So, so my idea actually is really uh, bearing its fruits. Now, Joseph, beware, he said, when you go get the plates, your mind will be filled with darkness, and all manner of evil will rush into your mind to prevent you from keeping the commandments of God. Directing Joseph to someone who would support him, Moroni urged him to tell his father about the vision. He will believe you every word you say, the angel promised. Because remember, in Catherine's journal or that entry or that talk she gave, he says, she says that Joseph didn't feel like his father would believe him. The next morning, Joseph said nothing about Moroni, even though he knew his father also also believed in visions and angels. Instead, they spent the morning harvesting a nearby field with Alvin. The work was difficult. Joseph tried to keep pace with his brother as they swung their sickles back and forth through the tall grain, but Moroni's visit had kept him awake all night, and his uh, thoughts kept returning to the ancient record and the hill where it was buried. And you think about this, because of Joseph Smith's fatigue, the father engages with him, and basically Joseph is now compelled to tell the story. So I think that it works. That the story is accurate in the action and the affected parties in the story and how they react in the situation. So anyway, we have come to an end today, and we'll continue this tomorrow about the coming forth of the Book of Mormon and read more about and reflect on what these what the words are presented to us. Anyway, I appreciate those who came and joined me this day. Again, share, like, subscribe to the channel. Excuse me, share and like this video. Subscribe to the channel, and go ahead and leave a comment. And if you want to create a better content on here, because you have that presence, you want to do something more about sharing the gospel, then come and join me on Zoom. All you have to do is contact me on Facebook, Arthur A.J. Hill, uh, and also all these links are on here on the comment or on my comments below. So again, share, like, subscribe, uh, comment. Also, you can find me on Facebook under Arthur A.J. Hill. You can also find me on a Facebook group called For the Love of God. Also on Instagram, A Latter-day Saint on Fire. Also on another YouTube channel, which is for, A Latter-day Saint on Fire, which I've got a lot of content there. And Paul and AJ's Ex-Mormon Files, which is heated discussions with an anti. Um, but not heated, but they're good. They're good discussions. But anyway, those are the formats you can find me at if you want to engage with me at any time. Uh, Again, for the love of God, pray often, pray always, and and again, I testify that the Book of Mormon is the Word of God. And I have a story that I want to share with you tomorrow uh, about a gentleman that found peace through the Book of Mormon. It's an incredible story. And again, I love the work of the Lord, and that's why I do what I do. And He's changed my life so significantly that I have nothing better in my life to do. Uh, really, I don't. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. And we will end this broadcast. Yeah. I get so tied up, I don't even notice that we're still sharing the screen, and all of a sudden, but we'll do better. All right. Again, have a great day. and we'll see you tomorrow, 6